What does absolute power look like? In today's world, we marvel at tech billionaires and sovereign funds, but all of them are merely playing in a sandbox built by one man. If you adjust his fortune for inflation and the scale of the economy, his net worth would comfortably clear $400 billion today. He didn't just control a market, he controlled the lifeblood of an emerging superpower. His name was John D. Rockefeller. To history, he is a ghost that haunts the very foundation of modern capitalism. A philanthropist to some, an industrial dictator to most. But empires of this magnitude are never born out of thin air, nor are they built by accident. They are engineered piece by piece in absolute silence, away from the public eye. Long before the world knew the name Standard Oil, there was only an obsessive mind looking at numbers in a darkroom. This is how the blueprint of the world's greatest monopoly was drawn. Cleveland, Ohio, 1855. A 16-year-old boy walks the streets in a worn suit looking for work. He doesn't want a job for the money. He wants a masterclass in structure. He finds it at a small merchant firm called Hewitt & Tuttle. His job? Bookkeeper. Young John did not look at a financial ledger the way ordinary clerks did. To him, those leather-bound books were holy texts. He tracked every single penny, every delivery of grain, every gallon of water. He famously kept a tiny red notebook, known simply as Ledger A. In it, he recorded every transaction of his life, down to the cents he gave to charity. This wasn't discipline, it was a profound, almost terrifying obsession with order. Rockefeller loathed chaos. He despised waste. While the rest of the world saw the American economy as a wild, unpredictable game of luck, John saw a chaotic equation that simply needed to be solved. And very soon, a chaotic new commodity would give him the ultimate canvas. In 1859, a man named Edwin Drake struck oil in Titusville, Pennsylvania. Overnight, the world changed. The Black Gold Rush was born. Thousands of men rushed to the fields, driving wooden stakes into the mud, praying for a gusher. It was a landscape of pure madness. Oil was leaking into rivers, refineries were exploding, and the price of a barrel swung violently from $4 to 10 cents in a matter of months. It was a speculator's paradise and a conservative investor's nightmare. Rockefeller traveled to the oil region, looked at the mud, the fire, and the frantic greed, and walked away. He realized something that escaped everyone else. The real power didn't belong to the men digging holes in the ground. Drilling for oil was a gamble dependent on luck. The true leverage lay in refining it. If you could control the bottleneck, the process that turned raw, volatile sludge into clean, predictable kerosene, you could control the entire industry. He didn't want to dig for gold. He wanted to own the gate through which all gold had to pass. In 1870, Rockefeller consolidated his holdings and created the Standard Oil Company. The name wasn't chosen by a marketing team, it was a tactical statement. In a world where kerosene lamps routinely exploded in people's homes due to poor quality, Rockefeller promised a standard product, safe, reliable, unvarying. But behind the promise of safety lay a predatory machine. Rockefeller began a ruthless campaign to eliminate competition. His strategy was simple: buy out every refinery in Cleveland. If a competitor refused his offer, Rockefeller would artificially lower the price of Standard Oil kerosene in that region, taking massive losses until the rival bankrupted. He called it visual asphyxiation. In a single legendary sweep known as the Cleveland Massacre, Standard Oil absorbed 22 of its 26 competitors in less than 3 months. The men who sold out were given shares of Standard Oil, becoming wealthy partners. The ones who fought were crushed into oblivion. Rockefeller was systematically absorbing the market, but to achieve total dominion, he needed to control how oil moved. Oil is useless if you cannot ship it to the markets. Rockefeller understood that the railroads were the arteries of the nation, so he went to the railroad barons, men like Cornelius Vanderbilt and Tom Scott, and offered them a deal they couldn't refuse. Standard Oil would guarantee a massive, constant volume of oil shipments every single day, keeping their trains full. In exchange, the railroads gave Rockefeller a secret discount known as a rebate. But it went deeper. Rockefeller also demanded drawbacks, a secret fee that the railroads paid to Standard Oil for every barrel of oil his competitors shipped. Think about the sheer cruelty of this mechanics. His rivals were unknowingly financing Rockefeller's expansion with every single shipment they made. It was a mathematical impossibility to compete against Standard Oil. The railroads became his enforcers. If an independent refiner tried to survive, they suddenly found that train cars were mysteriously unavailable, or their shipping rates had doubled overnight. The trap was sprung. By the 1880s, the Standard Oil Trust had become an entity the world had never seen before. It controlled over 90% of the oil refining capacity in the United States. Political cartoons portrayed the company as a massive world-spanning octopus, its metallic tentacles wrapping around state legislatures, the U.S. Capitol, and the presidency itself. When the railroads realized Rockefeller had grown too powerful and tried to break his grip, he bypassed them entirely. He built hundreds of miles of secret underground iron pipelines, moving his oil across the continent without paying a single dime to the train companies. He had decoupled his empire from the physical limitations of the old economy. He didn't just dominate the market, he was the market. But absolute power breeds absolute resentment. The turning point didn't come from a rival businessman, but from a journalist. Her name was Ida Tarbell. Her father had been one of the independent refiners ruined by Rockefeller during the Cleveland Massacre. In 1902, she began publishing a meticulous factual expose titled The History of the Standard Oil Company. She didn't rely on emotional attacks. She used Rockefeller's own weapon against him: data, public records, and financial transcripts. She exposed the secret rebates, the intimidation, and the shadow network. The public outcry was furious. The government could no longer look away. In 1911, after years of intense legal warfare, the Supreme Court of the United States delivered its historic verdict. Standard Oil was declared an illegal monopoly under the Sherman Antitrust Act. The court ordered the immediate dissolution of the empire. The octopus was to be dismantled. The government celebrated the breakup of Standard Oil as a victory for democracy. The trust was fractured into 34 independent companies. Names like Standard Oil of New Jersey, Standard Oil of New York, and Ohio Oil. But history loves irony. Rockefeller owned shares in all 34 of those new entities. As the industrial world transitioned from kerosene lamps to the internal combustion engine and automobiles, the demand for oil skyrocketed exponentially. The value of those individual pieces, companies we know today as ExxonMobil, Chevron, and Amoco, grew to become worth far more than the original trust. The breakup didn't ruin Rockefeller, it doubled his wealth, making him the world's first official billionaire. He retired to his estates, spending his final years giving away his wealth to medicine and education, dying at the age of 97. The monopoly was broken, but the architecture he created remains intact. The modern corporate world still operates under the rules he invented in the shadows. Wealth, power, and history, they are all shaped by the forces we fail to see. This is Plain Sight. Subscribe and let's uncover the rest.